All right, today we are diving into a really incredible story. It's all about how our choices, and especially our prayers, can just echo through time, sometimes with impacts we don't see for decades. So, can a prayer you make today actually change a life, like decades from now? It's a huge question, right? Well, this whole explainer is going to explore that, all based on this single, remarkable account. And trust me, it's a wild ride, stretching from a mysterious vision way back in 1977 all the way to a stunning conclusion almost half a century later.
So let's get into it. The source for all this doesn't start with some dry theory. Nope, it kicks off with this really powerful idea that God isn't looking for spectators sitting on the sidelines. He's actually looking for people to jump in and participate in what he's doing.
And that's the crucial point right there. Prayer isn't just, a shopping list of requests we shoot up to the sky. It's more like an invitation to join a creative process that's already happening. It's a chance to become a partner in a story that's way, way bigger than just our own.
Okay, so how does this actually work? Let's see this whole idea in action with a really remarkable story. And it all begins with a simple, very specific prayer in a place you'd least expect.
And look at this timeline. What's so fascinating here is that it maps out a journey that spans nearly half a century. You've got these different years, these different places. They seem totally random, right? But as we're about to find out, they were anything but. They were all connected, perfectly orchestrated.
So, it's 1977. Our narrator is in Tahiti, and during a time of prayer, he gets this really distinct vision, a white boat with 3 hulls, a trimaran. And get this, later that day, he sees the exact same boat in the harbor. So for a whole month, he prays for whoever is on that boat. But here's the thing, he never meets them. He just has to trust, leaving him wondering, will this prayer ever be answered?
Okay, now here's where the story gets really good. Fast forward 2 years. He's thousands of miles away, and he meets this guy named Larry. And as Larry starts telling his life story, he talks about how he found his faith. It happened after a ship captain gave him a Bible, while he was living on his boat, docked in Tahiti. And you guessed it, it was a white boat with 3 holes.
I mean, can you imagine? In that one moment, it all clicks. He realizes his prayer wasn't a solo act. It was just one piece of this huge, intricate puzzle that God was putting together. You had the ship captain giving him a Bible, you had this prayer team praying, all these different moving parts perfectly orchestrated to reach this one guy's heart.
But believe it or not, that story, as amazing as it is, was just the warm-up. It was only part of what he was shown back in 1977. There was another prayer from that same trip, one that would take a whole lot longer to come true. We're talking 46 years. See, back in '77, he also had this vision of light just spreading from one isolated island to the next all across French Polynesia, so he prayed for it. And then, decades pass. Now, fast forward to 2023. And who is he working with? The actual president of French Polynesia. And what are they doing? They're bringing the gospel and humanitarian aid to those very same remote islands. He's literally seeing the fulfillment of a prayer he'd made almost 50 years earlier. So a story like that, a 46-year-old prayer being answered, it makes you think, right? It kind of begs a bigger question. Why is this divine partnership even necessary? I mean, what's the problem that this whole thing is trying to solve? To get to the bottom of that, we need to shift gears a little, from the story itself to the why behind it all.
And to really understand that answer, we have to start with the root of the problem, a concept that the speaker calls sin.
Now, the way he explains it, sin isn't just, a checklist of bad things you do. It's more about our core orientation. It's this fundamental turn inward towards being self-centered and away from God's design, which is all about love. And when you're pointed inward like that, disobedience is pretty much the natural result. And that choice, that direction you're facing, it comes with built-in consequences. The analogy he uses is a traffic law. Think about it. A stop sign isn't there to ruin your fun. It's there to protect you from getting into a wreck. It's the same idea here. When you follow God's way, it leads to things like peace and freedom and life. But when you disobey, the natural result is guilt, bondage, and ultimately death. So this creates a kind of profound dilemma for God. On the one hand, his perfect justice says, hey, a law is a law. The consequences have to be paid, right? A law without a consequence is just advice. But on the other hand, his fundamental nature is love, and his perfect mercy wants to forgive and restore everything. So how can you be perfectly just and perfectly merciful at the very same time? It seems like a contradiction.
Well, the argument here is that this massive dilemma, this tension between justice and mercy, is resolved in one single pivotal event in all of human history.
And that's the key takeaway. The cross isn't a contradiction of who God is. It's the opposite. It's a perfect convergence. It's the one place where these two things that seem like they can't possibly exist together, justice and mercy, actually meet and become one.
So how does that work? Well, justice is satisfied because the penalty for breaking the law, death, is paid in full. But mercy gets to have its day because God himself, in the person of Jesus, is the one who pays that price. He does it for all of us. So the law is upheld, but the door is thrown wide open for forgiveness.
Okay, so if this incredible forgiveness is just available, what does that mean for you and me? How do we actually access it? In our last section here, we're going to look at the practical steps to receiving it.
And it boils down to a pretty clear two-step process. And a really important point here, this isn't about earning forgiveness. You can't. It's about meeting the conditions to receive what's already being offered as a free gift.
So, what are the steps? The first is true repentance. And we're talking about something way deeper than just saying, I'm sorry. Think of it like a U-turn. First, you have to admit you're heading in the wrong direction. Then, you have to actually stop and physically turn away from that path. And finally, you turn and head in the complete opposite direction, towards God.
And that U-turn leads us right into the second condition, faith. This isn't about trying really hard to be a good person to make up for the past. It's not about earning your way back. It's simply about accepting the solution. It's believing that what Jesus did on the cross is enough, that it's the one and only way. It's like someone has already paid for an amazing gift for you, and all you have to do is reach out and take it. So, when you put it all together, what have we learned? First, that prayer is way more than asking for stuff. It's an invitation to partner with God. Second, that our choices have real consequences, which creates this huge dilemma between justice and mercy. And third, that dilemma has a solution, a gift that we receive just by repenting and having faith. In the end, this whole thing, from a 46-year-old prayer about a guy on a boat all the way to the theology of the cross, it all boils down to a personal choice. You're at a crossroads, two paths, two very different destinations. So the final question is, which path will you take?